The story of the United States begins long before 1776, with roots that stretch back to the age of exploration. Europeans began venturing across the Atlantic in the late 15th century, driven by a thirst for exploration, wealth, and religious freedom. These early voyages set the stage for centuries of colonization and cultural exchange. The Spanish established early footholds in the Caribbean and South America, while the English, French, and Dutch later focused on the eastern coast of North America. Each nation brought its own ambitions and conflicts to the New World. The first permanent English settlement, Jamestown, was founded in Virginia in 1607. This marked the beginning of a new chapter in American history. It was a harsh and unforgiving environment, but the colonists persevered, driven by the promise of land and opportunity. They faced numerous challenges, yet their determination never wavered. Life in the colonies was often difficult, marked by conflicts with Native Americans, disease, and the challenges of building a new society from scratch. The settlers had to adapt quickly to survive. Yet the colonists adapted, establishing farms, towns, and eventually thriving communities. These early settlements laid the foundation for future growth and prosperity. The 13 colonies, stretching from New Hampshire in the north to Georgia in the south, developed distinct regional identities based on geography, economics, and culture. Each region had its own unique way of life. New England became a center of shipbuilding and commerce, while the southern colonies relied heavily on agriculture, particularly tobacco and later, cotton, cultivated by enslaved Africans. This economic diversity shaped the colony's development. The colonial era was a time of immense growth and transformation. The population expanded and new towns and cities emerged across the landscape. The population of the colonies exploded, fueled by immigration from Europe and the forced migration of Africans through the brutal transatlantic slave trade. This influx of people brought new skills, cultures, and tensions. As the colonies matured, they developed their own political institutions, often modeled after those in England. These institutions became the training ground for future American leaders. Colonial assemblies, elected by property-owning men, gained increasing power, laying the groundwork for the representative government that would later define the United States. This was a significant step towards self-governance. However, tensions simmered beneath the surface. The relationship between the colonies and Great Britain grew increasingly strained. By the mid-18th century, the colonists had developed a strong sense of identity and resented increasing control from Great Britain. They began to see themselves as distinct from their British counterparts. Disputes over taxation without representation, restrictions on westward expansion, and other grievances fueled growing resentment towards British rule. These issues united the colonists in their quest for greater autonomy. The stage was set for a momentous clash that would forever alter the course of history. The seeds of revolution had been sown, and the fight for independence was on the horizon. The American Revolution was not just a war for independence, it was a revolution of ideas. It was a struggle for liberty, self-government, and the fundamental rights of man. The seeds of revolution were sown in the hearts and minds of the colonists long before the first shots were fired at Lexington and Concord in 1775. The colonists, inspired by Enlightenment ideals of individual liberty and popular sovereignty, chafed under British rule. The Declaration of Independence, adopted by the Continental Congress on July 4, 1776, stands as a testament to the colonists' unwavering belief in these principles. Penned by Thomas Jefferson, the Declaration proclaimed that all men are created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It declared that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, and that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. The war for independence was long and bloody. Outnumbered and outgunned, the Continental Army, led by General George Washington, faced immense challenges. Yet, the colonists persevered, fueled by their unwavering belief in their cause, and aided by crucial support from foreign allies, particularly France. From the battlefields of Saratoga to the final victory at Yorktown, the American Revolution showcased the courage, resilience, and determination of the American spirit. The Treaty of Paris, signed in 1783, formally recognized American independence and granted the newly formed nation vast territories stretching west to the Mississippi River. The American Revolution not only secured independence but also inspired revolutions and movements for freedom around the world. It marked the birth of a new nation founded on the principles of liberty, equality, and self-government, principles that would continue to shape the course of American history. The victory in the American Revolution secured independence, but the hard work of building a nation was just beginning. The triumph was just the first step in a long journey toward creating a stable and enduring government. The newly independent states, initially operating under the Articles of Confederation, faced numerous challenges. These challenges included managing war debts, maintaining public order, and fostering economic growth. The Articles, adopted in 1777, created a weak central government with limited powers, reflecting the colonists' fear of centralized authority. This fear stemmed from their experiences under British rule, where they felt oppressed by a distant and powerful government. However, the weaknesses of the Articles soon became apparent, leading to economic instability, interstate disputes, and an inability to effectively address national concerns. States often acted independently, creating their own currencies and imposing tariffs on each other, which further complicated economic recovery. Recognizing the need for a stronger national government, delegates from the states convened in Philadelphia in the summer of 1787 for what became known as the Constitutional Convention. This gathering was a pivotal moment in American history, as it sought to create a more unified and effective system of governance. The delegates, including such luminaries as James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and Benjamin Franklin, engaged in heated debates over the structure of the new government and the balance of power between the states and the federal government. These debates were intense and often contentious, reflecting the diverse perspectives and interests of the various states. The result of their deliberations was the United States Constitution, a remarkable document that has stood the test of time. It established the framework for a government that could adapt and endure through changing times and challenges. The Constitution, ratified in 1788, established a federal republic with a carefully crafted system of checks and balances designed to prevent tyranny and protect individual liberties. This system ensured that no single branch of government could dominate the others, promoting a balance of power. It created three branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial, each with its own distinct powers. This separation of powers was intended to provide a robust framework for governance and accountability. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, was added in 1791 to further safeguard individual freedoms, including freedom of speech, religion, the press, and the right to bear arms. These amendments addressed concerns that the original Constitution did not sufficiently protect individual liberties. The early years of the Republic were marked by both progress and challenges. The new nation had to navigate its way through uncharted waters, establishing its identity and place in the world. George Washington, unanimously elected as the first president, provided steady leadership during this formative period. His presidency set many precedents for the future, including the peaceful transfer of power. The new government faced the daunting task of establishing its legitimacy, building a national economy, and navigating the treacherous waters of international relations. These efforts required careful diplomacy and strategic planning. Despite these challenges, the young nation thrived, expanding westward, establishing a national bank, and solidifying its place on the world stage. The resilience and determination of its leaders and citizens laid the foundation for the United States to grow into a powerful and influential country. The issue of slavery cast a long shadow over the United States from its very beginnings, shaping its social, economic, and political landscape in profound ways. While the Founding Fathers acknowledged the evils of slavery, they also recognized the need for compromise in order to forge a union. This uneasy compromise laid the groundwork for future conflicts. As the nation expanded westward, the debate over slavery intensified, dividing the nation along sectional lines. The question of whether new territories should be free or slave states became a contentious issue. The North, increasingly industrialized, opposed the expansion of slavery, viewing it as incompatible with modern economic progress and moral values, while the South, heavily reliant on slave labor for its agricultural economy, fiercely defended it. The Southern way of life and economy were deeply intertwined with the institution of slavery. By the mid-19th century, the issue of slavery had reached a boiling point. The nation was on the brink of a major conflict with tensions running high. The Compromise of 1850, a series of laws intended to address the balance of power between free and slave states, only temporarily eased tensions. It was a fragile peace that could not hold for long. The publication of Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin in 1852 ignited the abolitionist movement, galvanizing public opinion against slavery. The book's vivid portrayal of the horrors of slavery stirred emotions and spurred action. The Dred Scott Supreme Court decision in 1857, which ruled that African Americans, whether free or enslaved, were not considered citizens and had no standing to sue in federal court, further inflamed sectional tensions. This decision underscored the deep divisions within the country. The election of Abraham Lincoln, a Republican opposed to the expansion of slavery, in 1860 proved to be the final straw. His election was seen as a direct threat to the Southern way of life. 11 Southern states seceded from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America. This act of secession marked the beginning of a new and violent chapter in American history. The Civil War, the bloodiest conflict in American history, erupted in April 1861 with the Confederate attack on Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The nation was plunged into a brutal and devastating war. The war raged for 4 long years, pitting brother against brother and tearing the nation apart. Families were divided, and the country faced unprecedented levels of destruction and loss. The Civil War was a watershed moment in American history. It fundamentally changed the nation, leading to significant social, political, and economic transformations. It ended slavery, reaffirmed the supremacy of the federal government, and redefined the meaning of liberty and equality. The Emancipation Proclamation was a pivotal step towards freedom for millions of enslaved people. The war also ushered in the tumultuous era of Reconstruction, a period of profound social, political, and economic upheaval as the nation grappled with the legacy of slavery and the challenges of integrating formerly enslaved people into society. Reconstruction was a time of great promise and significant challenges as the country sought to rebuild and redefine itself.